Got your email, Catherine. Let's play it by ear. We're just the whole night. We'll just wing it.
Okay, let's do that.
Let's just toss the agenda and talk about what comes up.
There
Okay.
you go.
I saw that look, Liz. Liz is like,
Doug, I'll give you a heads up. There's going to be quite a few people missing today. Ron, Michael Newgard, Rose,
I caught some of those emails. That's part
Kim
of
and Christy. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people excused.
All righty.
I'll send those to you, Jessica, if you didn't get them.
Let me, I was trying to find my roster with the roll call here.
Yeah. It was the new roster sent out today, I think.
Yeah, I got it. All right, so is that how we want to start this?
Here.
Let's start by saying, I'll start by saying, okay, welcome. All right, yeah. I'll start by saying welcome. Nice to see you all. Thanks for those of you who could make it. There's lots going on for everybody right now. But hopefully you're well and safe and in good spirits, because we don't want anybody in bad spirits here tonight. So that's a good enough reason to take the night off too.
Yep.
With that being said, then let's go through and see who's here. Let's start with Ron Campbell. Oh, we just said he's not here. Mark Elliott is also not here.
He's excused.
Mark's here.
Mark Elliott's here, yeah.
Mark Elliott is there, okay. Dennis Hickey.
Here.
Monica Roshib. Didn't see her. How about Kim Parman?
Kim is excused.
Kim's excused. Rose is excused. Michael Schmier.
Here.
He already said that. He's already said that, yes. Christy Switzer.
She's excused.
He's excused. Also Michael Newgard.
Excused.
Grover Bornefeld.
He's here.
All right. I thought I saw you. Jan Lindstrom.
Hello.
All right. Hi, Jan.
Forgive my photo. I am going to eat for a minute.
Awesome
Doug Jones,
photo.
that's me. I'm here. Shonda Wild.
I'm here.
Great. I was going to say nice to see you, Shonda, but
Thank you.
sure. Paul Boundy.
Yep, I'm here.
Great. And Gary Bukowski.
I'm here too.
Somebody named Vacant. I don't know who that is. All right. Sorry, you caught me punchy. I get in altered spirits when the traffic is unexpectedly good. So I was like,
If that's all it takes.
Tonight, we're going through, mainly we're getting updates from the project team. Catherine's got some things to share. Liz has got some things to share. Jim also has some things to share. Jim, Ron, and Kurt, or excuse me, Ray, Jim, Ray, and Kurt. And so we've got updates to go through. We'll also be talking about the sustainability and art subcommittees and who's see about getting people to participate in those groups. So then, Catherine, why don't you tell who else is here besides the task force members?
Okay, so there's Sarah. Sarah's here tonight. She is the new interim deputy director for business and community services. She's going to say a few words in a minute, and then she's going to gracefully step out of the room. And then we've got me, and then we are having all of the staff in the audience trying a new thing. You know, we've been on Zoom a whole year now. We're trying to refine what we know, just to give so that you can see each other a little bit better, a little bit more screen space for the task force. So we have quite a few staff in the as attendees, and if we need them, we'll bring them in. So we've got Allegra Wilhite, she's Deputy Director of Business and Community Services. Ellen Rogalin, whom you know, Public and Government Affairs. Heather Cook, Senior Planner for NCPRD. Candy Ho interim director for NCPRD, Catherine Cole from the library, from Link Library. Mitzi Olson, of course, we may need her tonight. We'll bring her in if we need to. And then Liz is going to introduce the staff in a minute. So that's who we got on our side.
All right. So hopefully you all saw the meeting summary that Catherine emailed out from our last meeting.
We can't hear you very well, Doug.
Oh, sorry. Hopefully you all saw the meeting summary that was sent out from last meeting. Do we need to approve that? Or at least see if there's any corrections or changes to that?
Yeah, we need to approve it or change it or other.
Before we get a motion, are there any changes that need to be made to that? Okay. Anybody want to make a motion to approve the meeting summary?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting summary.
I'll second it.
Okay. So moved and seconded. Anybody, all those in favor? Say aye. Thumbs up. Let's do thumbs up. This is more obvious. Okay. Grover, you only get one vote. Oh, that's voting for something completely different. Anybody opposed? All right, so that's approved. Catherine, it's on to you.
All right. So as I mentioned, I sent you all an email that Laura Zentner was retiring, and Sarah's here. I wanted you to meet her face to face, as it is, as it were, and let her say a few words. Laura's retired, and Sarah is the new interim director.
Thank you, Catherine, and good evening, everybody. Thanks for letting me come and listen in. My name is Sarah Ekman. I'm the interim director with Business and Community Services for the county. Doug, it's so good to see you. I know Doug from our Emergency Operations Center days. It's been a while. So I was like, oh, there's Doug.
Yeah, good to see you again, Sarah.
Yeah. So I know Laura was very passionate about this project and an advocate for it everywhere she could be, and really, wanted to see this carried through. And I want to continue that, and excited to be able to engage and watch it move forward. And very much want to thank all of you for all of your time and attention to this. It's something that's very important for the community, and we're just thrilled to see it going, and all of you giving all the time that you do to advance it. So we do feel passionately about this for the community. I live less than a mile away from Concord, and so I'm really excited personally too, being part of the community and within the area that it will benefit. So that's an exciting part for me too, but it's really important for the county, and we're excited to see all of this going forward. Yeah, I think that's what I have. I'm going to escape into the background, but I'm eager to continue in this process with all of you. Glad to be here and can't wait to see what's on tap and what comes next. So thank you.
Sarah, quick question. Did
Yes.
you grow up in the Oak Grove area?
No, I didn't. I grew up in North Portland and then out in Sandy for a bit.
Okay.
We moved
The
here
name-
about I've been here about 5 years.
The name looked familiar from when I was teaching. So
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wasn't me.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah.
I'll let you slip away now. Or I'll try anyway. Hold on a minute. I'll get you in a minute. So project updates, I'll continue with that. You probably know that the OPSIS contract was approved by the board on April 1st. So we're really excited about that. So that contract goes from schematic design through permitting. So probably through mid next summer or so. So we're really excited about that. That allows us to just really get up and running. Some other things that we're working on with staff and with the team. We're working on a solicitation for a contractor to get a contractor on board, so that person can, that group entity contractor can be a part of the team, get to know the project early, and help us with logistics and cost estimating. So we're working on that. We're also working on the zone change for the property. What else? We're meeting with we're calling it the user group. We're all the user group really, but we've been meeting, OPSIS has been meeting, and also with Ray and Johnston Architects with the librarians, meeting with Mitzi and her group to make sure that the library works for them. So we've set up some regular meetings with the library groups. And then most of you know that I am going to be retiring, and I'm working part-time until we get a project manager on board. And we're well into the selection of a project manager. The third interview is next week, so I'll keep you up to date on that. And then the last thing I wanted to just remind us all of is that in this phase of the project, we're starting schematic design, really starting tonight, yay. The role of the task force will be a little bit different than it was previously. Before we were making big decisions and advising the board on sort of where all the big pieces were for the master plan. And also, as you remember, whether or not the Oak Lodge Library was even sited on the Concord property. And so we had some really good discussions about that. I'm sure we all remember those well, and you voted on your recommendations. We will not be voting on design issues in this phase of the work. We're going to be taking all of the comments into consideration, staff, your comments, staff comments, OPSIS expertise and creativity, and it will be sort of assimilated into a unified design. So that's one thing that'll be a little bit different. We are very interested in your input. We need your input and your ideas and your suggestions, but just wanted to let you know we're not going to be voting on design. So any questions on that? Okay. That's the end of my updates, Doug.
Let's see. So end of your updates now. I think we're on to Liz, who's going to talk to us about the schedule for schematic design.
Yeah, yeah, and I am gonna share. I have pictures, so we'll share my screen. Catherine mentioned our team's growing now that we're entering kind of the documentation phase of the project, and a lot of them are here tonight kind of lurking in the audience as well, like the staff. And so hopefully at some point during design, we'll get to have you all meet everybody that's part of this. Some of these faces should look pretty familiar, obviously, Jim and Ray, and I think Mona too. But now we have Aaron, who's our project architect on board, and John Morrison, our project designer, Julia, our interior designer, and then Xiao, who's also helping with design and documentation. So you'll get a chance to hopefully meet all of us moving forward. This graphic should look pretty familiar, but we thought it was worth just revisiting quickly and talking about where we're at in the schedule and what all the phases really mean. Like Catherine mentioned, we finished master plan, we get a check mark, it got approved. And now we just started schematic design really, I think last week. So this is the very beginning. We've obviously been thinking about this and evolving the design kind of in the downtime. So we're excited to share with you a lot of new stuff today. But during this phase, we're gonna refine the concept design and really look at the building character, make sure that the building is functionally working for the user groups for both the library and NCPRD. Start to engage our consultants, our engineers, and establish what the building systems for mechanical and electrical and plumbing are gonna be, as well as what our sustainability parameters will be. And then we've got some complex code things that we need to deal with at this building. So we're really going to start diving into the code in this phase. We're starting to look at the opportunities for art and integrating history. And then Catherine mentioned we're working on hiring a contractor. And so once we get them on board, we'll have their knowledge and expertise to talk about both cost and constructability and get them familiar with the project before construction starts. And we're also working on land use. So right now we're running traffic studies that'll get included into our land use submission. And then we have some community engagement that we'll talk about in a minute. That's part of the schematic design phase. So this phase takes 3 months and it'll wrap up in the summer. And then we'll move on to design development, which is 4 months. It's a little bit longer. It's when we're really working on refining the design. And then in the fall, we move into construction documents, and that's when the design stops changing as much and we're really focusing on documentation and making sure that we have a really clear set of details and construction drawings that the contractor can use to build the project. And then in the spring, we move into bidding and permitting and then eventually construction. So that's kind of where we're at on the big map. And so wanted to talk a little bit about, we're going to see big changes happen in schematic design, or the bigger changes design wise, because this is when we're still establishing really what the character is going to be, what we need out of this building. And it's also when we have the most opportunity to really control cost with wholesale changes, and which gets a little bit more complicated as we get farther along in design and we're more limited about the changes we can make. This is another graphic of schedule, but I really wanted to use it to talk to you all about the touch points that we've identified to come back and talk to the task force group. We've picked 6 times, but you can see they're not really evenly distributed through the design schedule. They're really more clustered towards the front end. And that's for the reasons we were just talking about. It's because that's when the design is really changing the quickest, the more changes are happening. And we want to make sure that we have enough feedback from you all and keep you in the loop and can incorporate your comments into the design as it moves forward. So the way we've broken it down is 3 task force meetings during schematic design. And then we'll have 2 task force meetings during the next phase, design development. And then we'll have a little bit of a break and meet again during construction documents, where we can kind of see where the project has ended up and where the designs landed. And then obviously we'll get to all meet again during the groundbreaking and grand opening. So just to give you all an idea of what we're looking at during those 3 meetings that we identified for SD, and kind of you can plan on what maybe the topics of conversation would be. Today we're in the yellow meeting, the beginning of SD, where, like Doug said, we're going to review the comments that everybody made at the end of the master plan, both from the task force, from NCPRD, from the library, and then share with you how we're starting to respond to those and how they're affecting the design and how the design has changed based on that. And then we're also going to select the sustainability subcommittee member. And then we're going to check back in halfway through SD, which would be late May. And then we'll have design refinements to share with you based on the comments from tonight and more feedback we've gotten from the user groups. And then we'll select the art and history subcommittee members. So those are going to lag a little bit from sustainability. And then in July, it'll be our 3rd SD task force, and that'll be when we really have the full SD package to share with you all, potentially some cost information and some initial preliminary reports from the subcommittees. This should also be a familiar slide. It's our public involvement plan, but really just we have 4 legs of it, and one would be the public design updates, task force meetings, things like that. And then the other 3 are the subcommittees that we're establishing. So just you can keep in mind for opportunities, which one seems to make the most sense or that you might want to be involved in. There's sustainability. There's also going to be art and history. sustainability, to give you guys an idea of what that's going to entail, it's a fairly easy commitment. We're looking at one meeting, and we've established the meeting time already. It's going to be May 10th from 2:30 to 5, and it's on Zoom. And it's kind of a technical meeting, but really interesting. It's a really diverse group of people that'll be there. It's the task force representative, project manager, the Energy Trust facilitator from Energy Trust of Oregon, members of the project management team, our design team, so both architects, but also our mechanical and electrical engineers. Kurt will be there to talk about landscape a little bit. We'll have a representative from facilities and then a sustainability representative from the county. So the goal of this meeting is going to be to try to establish what the project energy goals are going to be, and then how we're going to try to achieve that. So we'll look at our preliminary energy modeling and daylight modeling, and talk about the building mechanical systems that we're thinking of using, and also some sustainable site strategies. And then ETO offers financial incentives, so we'll collectively kind of decide which ones make the most sense for us to try to go after. So I think with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and Catherine can help, maybe if anybody would be interested in joining us for that, help facilitate who would like to be part of that.
It's only been a year. Eventually, I will learn to unmute before I speak. So who do we have that's interested in being part of the charrette for the Energy Trust of Oregon on May 10th? Okay, we've got 2. We got 3. Okay, so we were thinking that we could, 1 is good, 2 is fine, and 3 is probably too many. So because we're going to have a lot of consultants there.
I'll take my hand back if that
Okay.
simplify things. I'd love to do it, but you know, if people are
I
more
know it is going to be interesting, isn't it? So, so we've got 2. This is going to be really easy. You guys are making it easy on us. It looks like Gary and Mark are interested. Maybe Paul, you can be a backup if one of those guys can't make it for some reason. Great.
I think both these guys have great experience, and Mark, of the 2 of you that I know much about, I think Mark has a ton of experience, at least being in the architecture field. So I think these are great choices.
Yeah, I'm really happy with it too. I know Gary's spent a lot of time looking at some of the details, the technical parts of the site as well. So between the 2 of you, I think we're in good hands, and that'll be some good good input that the committee will really value, and then the design team going forward. Thanks, you guys.
So I'll make sure I send out a notice to you guys so you get it on your calendars.
Awesome. That's exciting. And now I think we also get into the exciting part of what we have to talk about tonight, and that's kind of where the design's moving. So I'm going to share my screen again and then hand it over to Jim.
Jim, we can't hear you. Liz, can you hear Jim?
No.
Okay.
Really?
There you go.
Now we can hear Jim.
Oh, wow. All right.
There
I
you're good
wasn't
now.
muted. It's just odd. Anyway,
Good to go.
Okay.
You're good to go.
am I good? All right. Terrific. Well, I was just saying it's exciting to be moving into schematic design, and as kind of a launching point for this effort, there was a lot of great input we received at the end of the master plan phase, comments from the task force, as well as Parks and Recreation and the library. And so we want to reference that feedback, and really many of the comments that were brought up are things that we've already tried to address. So hopefully you'll see some advancement of the project and the design that lines up with the comments that you brought up to us. And so we've kind of organized this into building layout and functionality. And these first list of comments are from the task force, so hopefully you recognize them. You know, there's a comment about creating a community kitchen, commercial capability. I think our goal on this is to size the kitchen so it could have that capability. Whether or not we're able to afford a full commercial kitchen at this point remains to be seen. But we certainly don't want to undersize it and cut ourselves short in terms of the longevity of this kitchen space. So a lot of comments, you'll see themes about gender inclusive restrooms, and also restrooms for family and children, outdoor play area for kids. Also, this was a big one too, the community theater aspect of the existing gym space, really being a community resource, how we can, as we remodel that space, take into consideration the capability for theatrical lighting and acoustics, audiovisual capability. So it's really set up to support a variety of activities, including recreation and cultural. The historic archives in the library, as we start to define more specifically the layout, how can we integrate that? Where's the best spot for it? The comments that you see in the light gray are really important comments. Some of them, though, we feel may be something we consider later in schematic or even in design development. So just as a point of reference, a lot of great input. Some of those comments are really, we need to focus on right now. Other ones we could probably address later. So we can go to the next slide. This is still about building layout and functionality, but this is based specifically on feedback from the library and the librarians. You know, I'm not going to go through all of them, but a lot of comments about restrooms, creating also more meeting space for smaller groups and even a mid-sized group. More space allocated to lounge and seating, perhaps a little bit less for collection. Considerations for what happens with the library, you know, when there are situations like we're going through right now in terms of having less furniture, more space between furniture for just spatial distancing, and so providing appropriate storage for some of this furniture. The Friends area, is that something that should actually be inside the library? We had a meeting with the librarians prior to this, and that was their preference. So that's one of the things that we're going to be considering moving forward, is moving the Friends area inside the kind of secure zone of the library. And then a number of other comments too about deliveries and book drop and that sort of thing, and convenient 15-minute parking close by. Those are actually considerations that we probably want to think about right now. So even some of the gray comments are really going to be moved forward in terms of being responsive to them. And then the next series are also about building layout functionality, but really from the NCPRD perspective. Again, you'll see the restrooms coming up again, the gymnasium, the existing gym, and providing accessibility up to the stage is actually a really important consideration that the current stage doesn't offer. You know, again, the definition of the locker rooms, restrooms, a lot of comments on that. The ability to kind of zone the building and be able to close off sections of it when desired after hours. So those are some of the key points there. And then we're moving kind of more into site and exterior character. That's something we didn't talk a lot about, was the exterior character previously. We really want to focus on that. It's a big focus today, and it will be for the subsequent meetings. So we want to, comment was brought up, I think it was Grover, about is there potential to actually reproportion the library addition to increase more park space? So we'll talk about that tonight. You know, having the entry to the building, the shared new entry that's accessible, making sure that it's really activating the plaza, that there's kind of this synergy about the design of it, and also making sure that this new entry doesn't create a competitive and confusing relationship to the historic entry stair. So are there ways that we can actually help address that potential confusion? Because we want to honor that entry stair, but we also want to downplay it obviously as an entry to the building, except really on kind of special events and occasional events that might be happening specifically in the gymnasium, the existing gym. You know, what's the materiality and scale and fit of the addition? How does it really feel like it's connected to the Concord School, but also not competitive, you know? How does it feel harmonious and compatible, but not trying to replicate and create a, you know, competitive kind of scenario? So that's a real challenge. We have some thoughts on that. There was a really great comment I kind of stuck with me that was brought up about the relationship of the corner of the addition. We were showing a lot of glass, kind of eroding that corner to have a view into the library. And the comment was, should there really be more of a solid wall next to the Concord School? Should there be kind of more of a visual kind of, in a positive way, kind of tension, you know, between those two, between the addition and the Concord School? So that's something we're looking at as well. The plaza stairs, you know, accessibility being really important up to the upper part of the park. Stormwater management and paving. You know, right now we're showing a really efficient parking layout, but as we get into it, there'll probably be more landscape and stormwater treatment, and then really thinking about also the terminus of the Spalding right away. Comments from NCPRD related to grading around the building, also providing good maintenance access. This comment, one of the comments is specifically about the east side of the gymnasium, providing access across the backside there. I think previously we were showing kind of the grade coming up high next to the gym. So some comments there we really need to focus on. And then this kind of ability for the plaza and the park to really support events and performances, and even with the grade, you know, possibilities for amphitheater. Obviously wayfinding being really important and keeping an eye on maintenance. All right, so there are a lot of comments, but it's really an important baseline, you know, and it's been a while since we talked about them, but we thought it was important to spend a few minutes just going over those. So some of these images will look familiar, but just reminding ourselves of the context here, the different faces of the Concord School, the nature of the kind of main entry to the building. One of the things we started to notice is how the brick building is so kind of taunt that the entries are always kind of carved into the facade of the building. You can see the grade on the backside or southeast corner, and how we really need to think about pulling that grade back to create some good accessibility back to the north wing of the existing building. And then, you know, the interior, you know, there's going to be quite a transformation of many of the spaces, but we think that the upper floor in this east-west corridor is a really wonderful opportunity to kind of retain the kind of memory and character of the historic school. In fact, there's where the principal's office there's some interior relights. You can see the true divided light and some of the wood detailing. There's places that maybe we can draw from and maybe not be able to replicate exactly where openings were, but maybe replicate the flavor and the character, bring back some of the moldings and ceiling character that really gives one the feeling of what this school may have felt like. We think this is a really great opportunity, and we are looking at retaining the stairwells, both at the south and the north end. Those are really iconic and part of the character. And this hallway, as you know, being the main kind of circulation, also connects to the, you can go to the next image, to the gymnasium, which is another room that's fairly intact. And we also want to honor some of that, you know, the character that's there, and bring back qualities that are probably have been removed, even to the point of, you know, the windows are a cow wall material. They aren't obviously represent what the original character was. So we want to find this balance between making it fresh and new, but also honoring the historic quality of this this portion of the building. The other thing that's so cool is, you know, a lot of the artwork that was done over many years here in the school, and recording that and finding locations where we can really display and honor that, as well as thinking about new locations for art too. So that'll obviously be a big part of the art committee. But we want to start to record where this art is currently and understand perhaps some locations where it could be relocated. So I'm going to turn it over to Kurt to share a little bit about where we were with the master plan and some thoughts about advancing the site design.
Yeah, oh, thanks, Jim. First of all, I want to mention that it's not a one-person office at Lango Hansen. I have a number of people that are working on this project as well. And I think as Jim and Ray would attest, the most important thing as a principal is surrounding yourself with talent. So I have a lot of talented people helping me out on this project. So this is a bit of a refresher, but also to kind of hone in to kind of let you know what we're working on right now and how we're responding to a lot of the comments that that Jim mentioned. First of all, with the parking lot, we're beginning to zero in on a lot of the landscape code requirements. We're familiar with them before, but we're beginning to kind of tighten them up to really create as much green space as we can within the parking lot, both in terms of a tree cover, but also the understory as well. And we'll also be integrating stormwater facilities above ground with the parking lot as well. So we're beginning to kind of tighten that up. And then as we kind of move through the park, you know, what you see right now in terms of the plaza area in front of the library, next to the amphitheater stairs, we're beginning to take a look at both the grading to ensure that we have a fully accessible area, but also beginning to get into some of the finer points in terms of how do we create seating nodes, how do we create kind of still maintain kind of large flexible areas, provide those kind of smaller seating pockets within these areas. And I think Jim will share some of the refinements at the entry, which we're hoping to kind of really build upon in the landscape. A couple of the comments that we heard about integrating, I think, more kind of, either natural elements or kind of more trees within the area is something that we're also taking a look at in terms of what species trees we can use, perhaps a mix of kind of native and ornamental trees. So we really begin to, I think, kind of knit together the park with the building itself. And along those same lines, the loop trail, and we had kind of charted out a loop trail before, but we're beginning to kind of fine tune that to make sure that is fully accessible as well. We know that we're getting a little bit more of land on the, I guess it would be the west side of the project with Olive Avenue. It's not shown here, but we'll begin to kind of integrate that into the plans as well. And then as we kind of move ourselves kind of around the building, the parking at Southeast Spalding Avenue, we're looking at that as a fire access. So making sure that we have proper turnaround for a fire truck, like a 3-point turn, but not doing it in a very obvious manner. So making sure it's kind of integrated with existing paving and parking as well. And then towards the back of the building, maintenance access, making sure that we're providing adequate areas to kind of maintain that back area. Perhaps even maybe at the top of that bank, providing some public access connecting Spalding to Concord Road. So looking at all of that, I think the next plate shows a little bit about kind of what some of the challenges are. Each one of these lines represents a 1-foot contour. So there's about a 30-foot grade change from one side of the site to the next. And we're having to, of course, meet up at the property line, you know, all 4 sides. So it's a bit of a puzzle trying to get it all kind of work together. We're also trying to balance the cut and fill on the site. So we don't want to haul off a lot of dirt at great expense. We don't have to bring in a lot of dirt at great expense. So it's kind of a balancing game that we're looking at right now, just starting out, and it all seems to be working so far in creating these kind of accessible areas, accessible ramps where we need them. Also, we just wanted to share just a couple quick images of what might be the potential play or the play area and imagery associated with that. We've looked at a number of the other play areas in the district, and I think early on there was a lot of discussion about creating an inclusive play area. And I guess what that means to us is creating play elements that serve children of all ages and all abilities as well. Creating areas that might be a little bit more sheltered for kids within kind of the range of autism. Creating areas that are accessible for kids of all mobilities. And so these are just some images from projects around the country that we enjoy. And I think as we move that design along, we'll be excited to share more imagery and the design itself with you.
So this is a diagram that shows the within the dark outline, the area at the ground level of the Concord School, and it in purple shows dedicated space for NCPRD. And then in the light rust color is dedicated space for the library, which is about 3,000 square feet. And then in yellow is really shared space between NCPRD and the library. So when you total that together, it's about 7,000 square feet. And we know we're looking for about 19,000 square feet for the library space. And so that tells us that the addition is 12,000 square feet. And in terms of trying to understand what establishes that footprint for the library, we had some input early on, and we continue to have a conversation with Matt Davis from the Architectural Resource Group. In fact, he's been very involved with some of the updates that we've been considering. And one of the things that early on he felt was really important, and we also shared this sentiment as well, is to make sure that the west face of the addition is pushed back from the front face of the bays on either end of the Concord School. So we kind of pushed the limit here and said, well, let's go ahead and line up with the main facade, but make sure we're pushed back from the north, or excuse me, yeah, the north bay of the building. So making sure that the addition is in a way subservient to the Concord building. And then we also wanted to create separation between the existing Concord building and the kind of higher volume of the library. And we wanted to preserve windows and light coming into the Concord building, as well as bringing light to the library. So we're looking at a dimension there that is reasonable and comfortable. It's not, we don't think generous, but it's a comfortable dimension between the existing Concord building and the high bay volume of the library. And then when we get to the east side, we've got a hammerhead condition for our fire lane. And we need to have some setback, a reasonable, modest setback of some landscape between hardscape of a fire lane, hammerhead, and the facade of the building. We don't want to bring the hammerhead paving right up to a wall of the building. That just would not be appropriate. So really what's happened is it's three sides that are determining the footprint for the building. And that's what's establishing the north edge of the library. And so this is really the logic that set up the footprint that we're working with. So we can continue on here. This is the plan as we left it at the master plan phase. And, you know, one of the things that we started to look at, and it was kind of a comment that just a consideration that kind of we kept coming back to is how close is this vestibule to the main monumental stairs? That the overall notion of, you know, having an entry kind of in the knuckle of the L, we all agreed to, but the actual design of it being as close as it is to the monumental stairs, we started to kind of question. Also it being an element that extends out from the facade. When you start to look at the patterns of entries being kind of recessed into the facade, it seemed to us somewhat foreign. Other considerations, as you know, we'll look at this a little more carefully, you know, really has to do with the locker room and restrooms layout. But the thing we really want to focus on here is the entry. And so let's go to the next slide. This is a different approach, which says, let's kind of pull the entry away as far as we can really from the monumental stairs and create more separation, retain the integrity of the continuity of that primary facade. The other thing it does is harken back to one of the comments is activating the plaza. Can the entry give more to the plaza? And what this does is create more focus from the drop-off area and the short-term parking. The entry is actually closer there, which we think is really positive. The other thing that happens is you're entering into the gable end, which is kind of a pattern on the building. The monumental stairs, you enter in a gable at both the south and the north ends. There's gable entries. And so we felt this was actually a more appropriate response. And the other thing it does is create more of a covered area for a book drop. That's shown in a kind of narrow brick color that's next to the vestibule. So you can walk in under cover, drop your book off, and then enter into the vestibule. Other aspect that it does is create, we think, a better lobby. Instead of the lobby just being about circulation, when you come through the vestibule, there's the community resource space, which is something that we were starting to kind of lose, frankly, in the last rendition. What this does is create kind of a really welcoming area where there could be brochures and information. There could be tabling. You could have a really beautiful wall that displays even art or information. So it's a really a community hub, and it also has this really wonderful light coming in from the west, and is kind of a companion piece to the lounge area that's near the elevator and where the entry to the library is. The locker rooms, we've kind of gone into more detail here. We didn't have this detail before, but the idea is to create a restroom that would be comprised. This is one layout of what gender neutral or inclusive restrooms might start to feel like, and to be able to make sure they're designed where there's 2 ways in and out. So when you go into this restroom bank, you don't feel trapped if you're more towards, let's say, the east end of that restroom bank. And then kind of taking a similar approach for the locker rooms where they're ganged together, and then the area where showers might be egress out closer to the gymnasium. So we think this kind of notion of creating an entry off the kind of main circulation next to the administration area, and then having this connection more directly to the gym and having a second way out from the restrooms for the public seems to work pretty well. I'm going to hand off to Ray here, but you can see in this particular layout, we're showing still the Friends area being pulled outside the secure zone of the library. And the feedback we're hearing is let's move that into the library. Overall, there's kind of a perception that we may have more book stacks and collection than at the compromise of creating more lounge area. So we think that that could probably work really well. The other thing that it does is take the library multi-use room, and it could start to pull out a little bit more towards the lobby and have a face onto the lobby, which we think would be really exciting to give that room more presence. So when you walk in, you see activity occurring in that space. So Ray, do you want to share a little bit of update on some thoughts on the library?
Sure, thanks, Jim. So that idea of the multi-use room sort of pulling forward. When you enter, you see the receptionist for the community center on your right, and straight ahead, some lounge space and that multi-use room, and then to the left, the library. And you'll really see right into the service point. Librarians will be able to see patrons coming to visit. Close to them are the book drop. Just below them on the drawing here are some of the technologies, some of the PAC stations, and the history section in that lower area. And then as you move deeper into the library, the idea is that the stacks and the furniture stay low, and that you can really see where you are. You can look straight ahead and see the general collection. We'd probably be color coding stack ends and things so you could discern fiction from nonfiction. And then at the same time, you can see to your right, you know, the periodicals, the media, the holds close to the entry, and then deeper in a couple little conference rooms, family restrooms, and beyond in the upper left corner there, the children's area, which really serves a variety of ages, you know, ranging from toddlers to juveniles. So it might have a lower ceiling and really be a cozy kind of corner back in that part of the library. Then if you look again past the stacks towards the west and the south, you see this main street of general study areas and lounge areas, and turning again to your left, you see the teen area, which is got a nice articulated character to it. beyond that, a service point that will help with the nonfiction and the things that are happening deeper into the library, and the study and lounge seats that front on the park. An important aspect of this is this serrated edge that you see. And one thing we've been working with, and Jim's come up with some great ideas, and along with the rest of the team, of really creating a variety of seating spaces, and spaces that little eddies and areas that families or small groups of people might adopt and find to be their own part of the library, the part they really love to go. And so each of these nooks that have been created along that edge would have the sense of being surrounded by park space, but also possibly having unique lighting conditions, natural light coming down from above that I think Jim will talk about a little more. And then wrapping this, like I mentioned earlier, that children's area wrapping around the corner there with possibly a lower ceiling will really help to articulate the space and give it a lot of character. So we're kind of excited about how this fairly simple and relatively square building design can deliver a lot of variety and a lot of character internally. And we'll show you some images that sort of start to explore that.
Yeah, just that's, one other comment, and Ray kind of referenced it, is we're really trying to think about this west face of the library being the library in the garden, and thinking about really kind of an arm of landscape, really an extension of the park wrapping around the library. And you can see how it lines up with the landscape in front of the Concord school. So we think that's really positive. I think previously, there was just too much hardscape and not enough placemaking. And the idea is the edge of that landscape zone might even be a bench. So it's a sitting area, and there might be like a very kind of a special tree, maybe an oak tree or something that's growing as a feature in the plaza. One other thing I wanted to mention too, and I think it was mentioned as one of the key criteria as well, is making sure you've got some good maintenance capability around the backside of the gym. So I think I mentioned earlier, we were previously kind of tucking the gym east wall into the hillside, but now we're kind of laying that back. So we've got some good vehicular access back to clean windows there, as well as some mechanical rooms. So some really important practical feedback that we've gotten from NCPRD that we want to make sure we're addressing here. Yeah, we can go to the upper level. Subtle kind of changes up here. This is the original plan, and what we've started to do now is really dial in a little more detail of storage needs for the community room and restrooms. We can go to the next image. You can see the community room. We created larger kind of gray storage blocks that might even have sink and some storage to serve each of these 3 separate rooms. Restrooms at the end of the hallway. We started to even consider, just from a very conceptual standpoint, the kitchen and the layout of that, and also thinking about the potential to have this service bridge. It'd be kind of more of a pedestrian bridge where you could pull up behind the library and a caterer could bring in food directly into the kitchen, because that is up really at the upper level. So that's a consideration that we need to think about. And then, the lounge area will overlook the gym space below. Other kind of considerations that we've given is, second means of egress into the gymnasium. There might be an entry door into the gym. As you come up the stairs, you look straight across and you see that entry door, and providing after-hours security to the south wing of the upper level here. making sure the recreation staff have really good monitoring and supervision. That's something that we talked about before. And they can also monitor if the doors are open to from the monumental stair, that there would be glazing there as well. So they've got really kind of an ideal location to supervise this upper level. We're looking at a lift, handicap lift up to the stage, and providing oversized doors into gym storage. And some of that's still kind of work in progress. Restrooms, starting to show those right behind the stage area. Those are gender inclusive restrooms, so highly flexible. So we've got two areas of restroom capability. And then we made this multi-purpose classroom slightly larger, kind of gave it more presence off of the circulation. So those are kind of the updates, modest ones on the second floor. More changes were proposed on the ground level. This is kind of a fun drawing that John Morrison did, and we've been kind of, who's been really the designer working with me on this. And the idea is that this is a section cut through the library, and the notion that as you look towards the east, there are clear story windows, or looking to the south or north, there's kind of this idea of framing views up to the sky or the canopy of trees, or back towards the facade of the Concord school. That's one sort of experience. And then there's another experience that we're looking at creating, which is really kind of more focused on the ground plane and looking out to this garden area on the west side of the building. Also being cognizant that we want to really be careful about bringing strong west light into a library. How we bring light into a library needs to be carefully considered, needs to be diffused so we don't start to create glare and other kind of problems with natural light. We are going to be carefully modeling the windows and how we're bringing light into the library. So we're giving a lot of consideration to how that might work. This is kind of where we were on the interior view. Should look kind of familiar. We are looking at cross-laminated timber for the roof structure, and then a lighter kind of steel frame that would support that CLT. And in this case, you know, we were dropping in skylights, but it was really kind of more of a placeholder. The next view shows a little bit more of a refinement to say that let's bring that ribbon of clear story windows and wrap that around on the north side of the facade. I think previously we were showing some more windows or solid wall there. So kind of being really simple and clear about that clear story window around the perimeter. And as Ray was saying, extending that kind of lower datum line of a ceiling around the north side of the library. This is also starting to show a little more clarity about the structure with steel columns and beams. We're looking at a moment frame. What that means is the connection structurally between the beam and the column are very rigid, and so we don't need to have a lot of diagonal bracing or cross bracing at the perimeter. And our structural engineers very excited about how to do this with a more of a off-the-shelf connector that is very affordable, but allows us to get that rigid connection in a really affordable way. And then there's some other views. This is kind of a good one because you can see as you're looking towards the north and the west, these kind of vertical pattern of windows. And that's something that we've started to take a closer look at in terms of what is the appropriate character to work with the Concord School. So the next view shows the idea of that clear story window. Let me go to the next one. Yeah, shows the clear story window wrapping around that kind of lower extension of the lower ceiling that Ray was referencing. That's part of the children's area, and it terminates at a meeting room. And so then that clear-story window wraps down into a 2-story window opening, and that's where we would probably have our secondary egress location. And then to think about this kind of little bit more of a opaque volume that helps kind of establish a lower datum line and view out to the garden. And maybe that's washed with natural light and a skylight. Also, that becomes, we think, a really exciting opportunity for art that could be hung on that wall, a very dramatic and memorable location. There's a lot of potential for how that element could be designed. Another view of where we were before. This is a really good memory of what was a critique about having too much glass at that corner. And then what we have now, you go to the next view, is kind of an idea again of that clear story window wrapping down in that vertical zone of glass, that's 2 stories. It's pretty cool. It registers right with the stair, the north stair. And so it really kind of frames that moment, which is a very special moment, and creates this dialogue when you're going up that stair. Inside the Concord School, you're looking right into the library. So we think that's a really special moment, and how light could come down against that, that kind of gallery wall, that lifted up levitating wall. And then you can see the kind of intimate spaces that are created looking into the garden that wraps around that zone of the library. This is a view kind of where we were before of the gymnasium, and it has similar qualities to what we're showing in the library, with the high clear story windows, solid walls below. This is suggesting that we probably aren't going to need additional skylights. If we put a skylight next to the existing Concord School where the gym is, that's really exciting because you're getting all that light coming back into the existing gym, but it also balances the light in the gymnasium. So again, we'll be doing daylighting studies, and we're also realized too that we have a fairly sizable window facing south. So that's something that we're going to be really studying carefully to understand how to diffuse light and not create a glare situation. So this is kind of stepping back again and looking at the Concord School and just focusing in on how these entries are made. As I was mentioning earlier, this idea of kind of recessing the entries at the main entrance, and even how the plaster arch at the main entry kind of brings the quality of the interior to the outside. We thought was really quite interesting. Another thing we were really struck by, and again, this was brought up by Matt Davis, the Architectural Resource Group, is that kind of beautiful brick pattern on the end walls of both the south and the north end of the gables. And you know, historically, this was done in a time period where, you know, more glazing wasn't probably affordable. So this became a very deliberate design pattern, even to the point of creating a sill under that checkerboard pattern of brick. And so we're really excited about the notion of how we can start to create texture and pattern on brick that starts to work with this kind of special pattern that is part of the Concord School. So this is some of the diagnostic or kind of analysis we did to try to understand better the Concord facade. You know, it's really a beautiful facade. And as we start to understand it more, what makes it so unique is how the earth is brought up a bit higher, a couple feet, 30 inches actually at the ground level. So it kind of creates this compression with smaller windows into the basement or the ground level built portion of the school. And what it does is have these taller windows at the upper floor. And so there's a way the building kind of has this kind of anchored quality to the ground, but this kind of lightness above. And then there's the three gable elements, the center one obviously of entry, and then the two gable ends to the north and south. And there's this kind of very strong datum line of where the ground level windows stop and where the brick of the gable ends begin. And we think that's a very important aspect about proportion and what makes this building really unique. And so how do we start to relate to that? Well, here was where we were at the master plan. And, you know, the idea in some ways, as we look at this comparison, we thought we were kind of missing things. And, you know, here we were trying to replicate vertical patterns of brick that in a way don't pick up from our standpoint really the scale of what this building's about. And in some ways it starts to become, it tries to recall pattern, but it's like, well, which pattern do you like more? You know, and it inherently starts to create, some ways we think a more competitive relationship, which we don't think is right. So this is kind of what we're looking at now, is putting the, moving that entry, the shared entry, moving that further away towards the north. So it pulls away from the monumental stairs. It carves into what is a solid, primarily solid facade, and picking up this lower datum line, that red dashed line. And so that kind of removal of that portion, which is only a few windows, starts to also set up a gesture and an orientation towards the addition. And then to think about really picking up that lower datum line within the addition of being glass, and then having a more solid wall above. And to think about that as being an opportunity for creating a really interesting brick pattern, something that starts to, it may not be the same brick pattern, but there's a texture to it, there's interest to it, and it starts to create a dialogue back to one of the more signature kind of moments of the Concord building. So being sympathetic, but being different. And you'll start to see what that means in some other views here. So this was where we were before. And then this is where you see it starts to happen, where this entry now is carved in at the corner, and the dialogue between that datum line of the new entry and the library addition. It's obvious that they're joined together. And that was actually an important point that Matt Davis, historic architect, brought up, is how is it clear that these additions were done at the same time? That's actually something that SHPO would look favorably upon, is the clarity of that. He was actually very favorable to this particular strategy and approach. And then there's some other views here where we were with a vestibule that extended out, plus a canopy that in reality is kind of a foreign element, because the Concord School is really a taunt style of architecture. And then the next view shows what happens, where can we take these seating walls and start to organize them where the landscape and this bench wall really draws your eye to that entry in a really dramatic way, retains the integrity of the windows next to the solid facade, and then sets up a planter wall that extends around the library addition. And the dialogue obviously between the library addition and the entry. Where we were previously, and then the new approach, which, as you can see too, the idea of bringing more landscape into the experience, really the feeling of the park wrapping around the library. That tree, maybe it's a larger tree, it could be an oak tree, which seems like that would be very appropriate and symbolic for the Oak Grove Library. You can see how the planter wall could become an opportunity for seating. There could be other loose furniture to park-like furnishings that makes this a really exciting space. You can see into the library, but the people in the library don't necessarily feel like they're on display because there's enough landscape and buffer between the two. And so we're excited about what that means as well. And then the inviting nature, this is kind of what it would feel like from the drop-off zone, walking back towards the library. So the gesture of that entry really feels like it's about a rapport and a dialogue between that new entry and the library edition. And that's kind of where we're at.
And I'm going to stop sharing so we can all chat about it. But if there's anything else that anybody wants to go back and look at, just let me know.
I know that Grover's had his hand up patiently for a long time. Why don't you go,
Yes.
Grover?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you. I love the vast majority of the adaptations that you made. It's awesome. So thank you for that. I always had hoped that idea of putting the door in that section as opposed to where you had it on the main floor. So I just suggested too many things, so I kept my mouth shut on that one. So I think that's brilliant, brilliant. So I have a few questions in no particular order, but let's stick with that one. I think that is great. And the idea about, let's see which one. Well, I don't know. I'm going to jump all over the place. So I had a question. The existing kitchen that has not been removed yet, that is a commercial kitchen. I'm not asking you keeping it there, but to lose all of that commercial grade stuff, even if it doesn't get installed right away, I think is something to be considered, because if they left it in the basement where it is now or on the ground. So anyway, enough on that one.
Well, just real quick, Grover, I think we'll inventory what's there and we'll walk through. We have a kitchen consultant. We're all for recycling whatever we can.
Super. Yeah, because the issue was, and several people besides myself, plus many people in the community had spoken of the value as a contribution to the community of having a commercial kitchen. It has all kinds of entrepreneurial opportunities, et cetera, besides just a catering kitchen. And I love the one you had at the library we toured over there in Vancouver, because that was clearly a commercial kitchen as well. So anyway, I did want to speak to, they talked about the loop trail, and you also talked about the potential of connecting from Spalding across to Concord. And that ties right into something I think it'd be awesome if that did it, but consider all the way around the parking lot as well. So there was not a big wide, doesn't take up a lot of space, but an actual loop trail that goes all the way around behind the building, down around the parking lot. So runners, people who want to go farther, just consider that. It's not an absolute, but along that back side, I know I've been back there many times. There's a heck of a lot of drainage coming down off of those people up the hill. And I live up against the hill right out there. See? Anyway, it's an issue, and I know you guys will take into account. So that idea of having it pushed back a little bit and having access on the east side, I thought was excellent. Now, so you moved the teen space from upstairs? Is that, because I always had concern of that sitting up there by themselves, who's going to monitor the teens if they're up there in the community center? So,
well, there's the NCPRD staff offices. There's a zone of offices up on the second floor with staff up there. They're looking directly across to the teens. So we actually think it's a pretty ideal scenario for them.
So then I'm confused, because I thought the main entrance to the library, as it was going to go right past and have.
Oh, I'm sorry. There's two teen areas. There's
yes.
There's the library teens, and so Ray, do you want to speak to the library teens?
The one that's on the second floor in the old
second
building.
Floor. No, I was correct. Okay. So I was referring to the Park and Rec teen the community center teen area, which is in the northwest corner. And directly across from that would be NCPRD offices that are the staff offices that are the program staff that are operating the programs for recreation, and also the community center or teen programs. So it's actually an ideal scenario to have them on the second floor.
Okay, so that's a change from what I have in the most recent drawings that I have, because it
Oh,
showed the
okay.
NCPRD offices on the bottom floor, not the top
Well,
floor.
we have them in two, Catherine.
So
I'm
let me
not explaining very well.
respond to
Oh.
that. So Grover, the administrative offices are on the ground floor.
Yeah.
And the offices that are on the second floor are those, the staff that is needed to run the community center facility. Does that
Okay,
make sense?
And that's gonna, yes, and that will be, because it doesn't show on the old drawings that I have, but so that will be near where the teen space.
Right.
For the community. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, good, good. And then my next question had to do with, you know, that children's, how many of you know about the children's play area in Moreland Park that's right next to Highway 99? Okay, that's natural. It's got real rocks. It's got real wooden things and stuff. And it's such a contrast to what the one at the Boardman Wetland is. And I don't know if we can do something more natural or not. If there's a particular reason it has to be that way, it doesn't have to be decided now, but I'd like to have those two things at least considered.
Sure.
Because it's significantly different as far as what you get. And this is going to be the showplace of, and that's the other thing I want to clarify. This is the Oak Lodge Library, not the Oak Grove Library, correct? Okay. I love the idea of an oak tree out there, but it's
Oak
not.
Lodge, yeah,
Grove.
sorry.
There's
Yeah.
a sensitivity around here about that.
I know.
Now you said there was 19,000 square feet. Go ahead. You said there was
I think
19.
Jim misspoke. It's 19,500.
19,000.
500.
500 or something, yeah.
500.
Right, but how much of it's going to be in the addition versus how much is going to
12,000,
be? Does
roughly
it still work out
12,000.
right? Because I looked at the drawings, 12,000 in the addition, and then the other 7,000 and change will be in the
Yeah.
original building. Okay, good, good. And then the one thing in our COVID time, when we talked about the ventilation, and we also talked about this building being potentially available for, and we understand that we may not be able to be a survival under all conditions building, but the more that it can be a resource in disasters is just something to keep in mind. And I'm not trying to run the costs up, but I don't want to just rule that out because I expect we're going to be in enough of that anyway. Here's our dream, and then, oh, well, we can't afford that, and we keep shrinking down. So that is it. Awesome. I loved the movement of the entrance and how you tied all those lines together. That was excellent. Thank you.
Mark's got a question. Mark.
I don't think
hey,
we can
guys,
hear
hope
you,
you-
Doug. Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you. I hope you guys can hear me okay.
Yeah.
Gosh, I first wanted to just congratulate the design team on the progression that you're making. And I think some of the gestures and motion movements that you've made are really improving it. And I know that's going to continue to happen. So my hat off to you, Jim, for the work that you've been doing just to integrate the two buildings together. And I think that's really coming along really well. There were just a couple of comments, I guess, that I guess I wanted to make and some thoughts to give to the design team. First one in the kitchen. I really liked your idea, Jim, of providing capacity for a commercial kitchen, perhaps in the future, versus making that a primary use now. My concern is the considerable cost of what that kitchen will be and how much of a value that will be initially to the use of the building. And what I could see is perhaps being useful is that there is capacity for it. And as the need begins to progress and to evolve, and that's something that the community can invest in the future. I think in the kind of work that I've done in the past, sometimes that kind of investment is made up front and the actual use of it is not there for some time. And so it's just kind of derelict. And that's my fear if we put that kind of money into a commercial kitchen now. I think what would be really valuable to the community is to have the ability to serve food there and to have the ability to bring food in and serve it in a way that makes sense in a community center kind of setting. So that's one thought I have. Another off thought is on the upstairs gym. I really like the way that you've kind of isolated that to some degree. That allows there to be a variety of different uses in that room and that space, but also allow it to be operable during off hours. I think that's going to be really important if it's used as a theater space or a meeting space that's off after hours when the library might be closed or the NCPRD offices are closed. And so the ability to actually access that both through maybe the monumental stair, but some way that's accessible to the public through accessibility, I think that's going to be very valuable. There's a lot of people who are taking great interest in seeing that room as kind of used for a variety of different kind of community activities. And so I think the ability to have that available after hours is really going to make that really successful to be able to make that work. And I think also, you know, many of you know, and obviously those of us who live here know that the community itself is really looking at this facility to not only be a library, but this to be Oak Lodge's home. You know, we don't have a home now. There's nowhere you can say, hey, that this is where we meet as a community, you know, and that doesn't happen now. And so the community is really looking at this building to be our home for the Oak Lodge community. And so the library is one component of that, and the gym is another component. And so I want to be sure that we don't lose and don't put third place of the community aspect of this building. And so I think we just continue to really look at that, and just that's something I think you're going to hear from several of us as we hear from our constituents, the people that we work with and we talk with, that this is really not just a library, but this really is our community home. So those are kind of my big thoughts. And so thanks for all the work you guys are doing. I'm really proud of what you're doing. Thank you.
Any other comments? Jan.
Yes, couple of questions. Everything looks fabulous, by the way. I'm very excited. I may have asked this before and someone else may have asked this before, but were we trying to put space somewhere in the park or on the grounds for the seed library or the seed garden that we operate out of the library? They're kind of tentatively hanging out over at the new urban school, but that is not a given. But given that we have the seeds and we check them out and there's a learning component with kids, and then we can eat the food and use it in our non-commercial kitchen. It doesn't have to be big, but somewhere where maybe could have raised beds and the seed library could have their little, that would be awesome. I keep running into teenagers on skateboards who want a skate park. Every time I ask kids, what do you want? Your library? Skate park. I want them to read, but they want to skate. I know skate parks are expensive. We hadn't planned on one. But I did some research, and there are these interesting indoor skate parks you make out of a gymnasium. You know, you just, they make these like wooden half pipes and whatever, and they just like wheel them into the gym, and the gymnasium becomes a skate park. Something to think about. There's nothing in this area. And the skate parks that are in Clackamas County, I've looked at them. They look pretty scary. My other question was elevators. Remind me what we were doing about elevators, even though the library is now one level, but the meeting room area is 2 levels in the community room.
Yeah, well, we're preserving the elevator that's already in the Concord school. But it's always good to have a second elevator if one breaks down.
Right.
But we are providing a new elevator, and it'll be larger. It'll be a freight size elevator.
Oh,
And
good.
it's located right off the entry lobby. And this is a good drawing. That's the white box with an X through it. That's the elevator. And what we're doing is, as you're all aware, the addition wing, original addition wing, is lifted up a couple feet higher, and there's a ramp there. And so in lieu of providing all this real estate for a ramp, we're using the elevator as a way to make that little partial stop. So you can see there's stairs, but you could go into the elevator and it'll take you up just 2 feet. And it'll also take you all the way down, obviously, to the main level as well. But we're using it to address 3 different elevation changes.
Okay. Yeah, I was curious also just for bringing, I keep anticipating book events in the community room or even some big ones in the gymnasium, and having to bring books upstairs is of course hideously painful, and I don't want to go back to that life. Noise reduction for the gym. Just want to constantly mention noise reduction because books and basketballs are a bad combo. And then I know this is way too early to even think about this, but the trend right now is toward sort of laminate flooring or just, wood flooring or something flooring, which is so noisy. I don't know if you've been in any new restaurants that have decided to put no carpeting and no mitigation for noise. Within 20 minutes, I just have to run out. I'm like, I'm sorry, I can't eat here. So I just want to mention, I know carpeting is a nightmare and it's a pain in the ass to clean and everyone spills coffee on it and children throw up. But if it's not quiet in the library, nobody will want to read in there. So whatever we can do to make it quiet and not annoying. I was looking up 1930s libraries online, and they do have that kind of cool black and white diagonal linoleum flooring in some libraries. It looks kind of groovy. Something to think about. That's it for me.
Hey, Jan, I did want to comment on the skate park idea. I know there's an interest and a desire to have a skate park in the district. This park area is very small. We're trying to put a lot in there. So I just don't think that will be a compatible use at this particular site. Not only because of the use, but also because of the size. I mean, it's only 2 acres. It's going to act a lot like a community park, even though it's really the size of a neighborhood park.
Yeah. So
we just have to make choices on that.
I understand.
Yeah.
Maybe the skateboarders will just go down the handicap ramps when we're not looking.
I'm sure it will make provisions so that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a question from Michael who has to leave in a minute. So
I actually left when you weren't looking, and they canceled that other meeting. So I'm back.
Good.
So Jim, baby, my degree's in forestry. It's not in anything else. And they didn't teach us what a datum line was. What's a datum? What does that really mean?
Well, there's probably different terms, but a horizontal line across, it could be used compositionally. We used it for an architectural reference to the facade. So a horizontal line across the facade.
So that was just an arbitrary line that matched up with the top of the monumental stairs. it wasn't really the existing grade or anything.
No, I mean, what's interesting is it was part of the architectural intent. You know, the top of the head of the windows at the lower level lined right up with the monumental stairs. So it was very deliberate, and it took us you know, just kind of looking at it to realize, wow, that's part of a really important compositional technique for ordering that facade, to organize the facade.
When I first saw that graphic, I thought, well, that's not where the existing top of the grade is,
Yeah,
because that was didn't, you know, the existing grade comes just under the bottom windows, or
Exactly.
right about even with the bottom windows. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an arbitrary, well, it's an architectural line
Yeah.
that they used. Okay.
Yes.
For reference.
Yes. Yep.
Well, I really like the fact that you've lowered it down and put in the little retaining walls with the landscaping in them and everything. Looks nice.
Thank you. Dennis.
Go for it, Dennis.
Super exciting to actually see these things come together for me personally. Just we've been talking a lot about it, and we've seen renditions, but it's really filling in and super exciting. It'd be cool if we had a way to kind of share these updates to a broader audience. But could you remind me, we had discussions about restrooms outside.
Yes,
Good question.
that's been a topic of conversation. I don't know,
Yeah,
Catherine, do you want to?
Well, we're still talking about it, Dennis, because we understand the issues. The issues are, well, we've also got an interactive fountain, right? That kids are going to be playing in.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of people in the park, and we know that they are going to be coming into the building without a restroom on the site. They will be coming into the building to use the restroom, which probably isn't too bad, except that if they're all wet and and there's lots of kids traipsing in and out, it might not be the environment that is maybe desirable for the lobby for the building. So we are still thinking about it, trying to figure out who would maintain it. We do know that NCPRD is going to have staff on site, so that might be a possibility. It wasn't something that was in the original cost estimate, so we know that's an add. So, you know, we're trying to weigh the pros and cons of that right now.
Right, yeah, and I think kids coming in to use the restroom was only part of the equation.
Yeah.
As a principal at a school, early one September, I had a little kid come to my office because he had peed outside. And when I said, well, you know, you couldn't make it into the building, or was there not an adult to ask? And he said, no, well, I was camping. My dad told me last week, and if I had a pee, just go behind a tree. So, yeah, I know that's a problem. You got the maintenance, and then you've got, you know, who hangs out in there after hours and stuff. I know it's a big problem, but as a senior, more restrooms, the better.
Yeah, I agree. We're just trying to figure out if we can afford it and how we maintain it, and making sure
Yeah,
that
of course.
it's an asset to the park, not a liability.
Yeah, thanks.
You can always get those outdoor restrooms that I visited in Paris in the 1980s. I don't know if they're still there, probably not because of terrorism, but you know, they had a time limit on them.
Oh, so I know, yeah, they still have those.
Yeah, and you put money in like that.
Yeah.
Like if you're in the middle, too bad.
You know, once it has the showers after a time limit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jad, you'd be surprised what they have now in Paris for
Really?
urinals outdoors. It's not something I would use personally, but it does exist.
My favorite is when they just have a water closet and it's just a hole in the ground. You're like, really? That is awesome.
Shonda,
Catherine,
did you have a comment?
Yes, I have a question. Since I'm not able to see all these wonderful drawings, are they going to be available online, or is there any chance that they can be printed like the original schematic drawings that we had?
Well, yeah, we will definitely print the final round. Do you have any access to a computer at all? Because they are online right now, actually. I think they are.
Okay. All the drawings that were spoken about tonight are online?
Yeah. They're all
Okay.
online.
Okay.
Do you know where to go to get them, Shonda?
I'll figure it out.
Okay, I'll send you a link.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Can you send that to all of us?
sure. It's where, if you don't just, it's where you find the meeting notices on the website. I'll send it to all of you, but you can always find all of the information there. Well,
I actually had my hand up too.
oh, Doc.
And not to keep talking about restrooms, but I don't know. I was just unsure to some degree about the and I don't know, Liz, if you can pop up the diagram of the lower floor, the restrooms there next to the locker rooms, and the I don't remember, or I wouldn't mind hearing more. Jim, maybe you are the one to talk about this. About are all of them gender neutral, and therefore, and I don't have an issue with that necessarily, but if it means lots of private stalls, I'm just a tad concerned about security, and you know, some people, if they got too much privacy, don't always do things they should be doing in those kinds of spaces, if you know what I mean.
Oh, totally. And you know, this is just a first pass at it. We'll probably show 3 or 4 variations. Actually, we just did that on Gladstone with a very small library, but there's a lot of different ways to think about it. And we're not suggesting one way or the other, but you're raising good concerns, you know, and so I think it's something we're going to be looking very carefully at. It's, you know, this is just one layout, but there's lots of ways to create the restrooms. And, you know, we could, you know, there's different opinions about all gender inclusive, you know, it's somewhat, honestly, you know, it's relatively new. And so we're all kind of learning from that, what works, what doesn't. We do know from doing these in other schools and public buildings once you start to get 4 or 5 of these individual stalls, you definitely need to have 2 ways in and out. You know, you do not want to go into a space like that and feel like you don't have another option to get out. So that's a kind of a safety concern we've heard, you know, really good lighting and, you know, I think no matter what, we typically would want to provide 1 or 2, you know, gender inclusive restrooms. It's just you know, so then you've offered that as an amenity, but the question is, are all the restrooms designed that way or not? So I'm sure that'll probably be one part of the plan that we talk about for several months to come, you know, because there's going to be some different opinions. And so we'll look at various layouts and figure out what's best for you all.
And I see on that floor, there's the ones that are next to the locker rooms, but then there's those couple other ones that are down at the end there toward the south end, towards those stairs too. And
correct. Yeah, that one's interesting because that's
ones by the locker rooms have,
yeah.
There's, well, the reception area for the NCPRD is there by the ones by the locker rooms, but I don't know if there's any sort of line of sight that a staff person would see towards the restrooms that are down there at that other end. And I don't know if those are meant for something different, or if those are like if they're staff restrooms, or if those are
not necessarily. You know, it's the building's long enough that we could get away with just using restrooms at the community wing, but it's also you may have the recreation wing operating independently of the community wing. And so having some restrooms that are close by, if you're working out, you're ready to go to your, yoga class, and you don't want to necessarily have to walk all the way around the building to use the restroom. So having some convenient restrooms nearby are really important. We are thinking the corner of the offices, the program rec offices up there will have a view down the corridor. They're not going to look directly into those restrooms, but they'll be able to monitor people kind of coming in and out. So yeah, well, that's going to be something we're just going to have to continue to give more thought to it.
Thanks, Jim.
Grover, you want to wrap us up with one last question?
Sure. I noticed that this was all about building in the west side and the east side, but we didn't talk about how this is going to impact the north side, which is the park. And I appreciate they were getting the extra property to the west, but to the max, I so like the drawings for option 3 and up, as opposed to the plan for the option 2, and things are changing a bit. So we didn't get to talk about what the park layout would be and where the kiddies stuff was and so on and so forth. And I don't expect an answer now, but I do know that that's something I'm very much concerned about, because we have so few parks here. So yes, yay for a gym and yay for a library, but we're still park deficient big time. So I'm very interested in how that turns out. So
we do have a few minutes. I mean, we could go to that plan, and if Kurt wanted to share a little more, if that's okay.
Yeah, we've got about maybe 4 minutes, and then we need to do a public comment. I don't actually think we will have a lot
time right now. Well, stay tuned. We'll come back.
Definitely.
Okay.
We're working on it.
We're working on it. There you go.
Is that on the drawings that Catherine's going to give us the connection to, so I can go look there on my own?
The drawings I'll give you a connection to are the ones you saw tonight.
Yeah.
But so it won't include what Jim was just referring to, the park part.
Well, those drawings are kind of in process. We're working on those now. So what we hope is for this next meeting that we all have together, that we'll continue to develop it and share those with you then.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, stay tuned, as Jim said. So I think the near-term schedule is very simple. We've got the May 20th is our next task force meeting. Now, this is not the first Thursday or second Thursday, so it's a little bit different than what we've been doing. And what we're trying to do, especially for Concord, is make sure that the meetings are placed so that they're in an appropriate sync with the design team, as opposed to just saying they're on the first or the second Thursday of the month. So May 20th, I'll of course send out a notice on that. And then we've got the Energy Trust of Oregon meeting on the 10th. So we'll have Mark and Gary report out on that at the next meeting, as well as reporting out with the rest of our design team. And with that, I'm going to open it up to public comment and see if anybody in the attendees raises their hand if they would like to speak. I have to say, most of the people in the audience are consultants or staff, except for Thelma. Okay, it doesn't look like we have anybody who's wanting to speak. So we'll close the public comment period and kick it over to Doug. You're muted, Doug, I think.
Having microphone issues. Can you
Yeah.
hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
That, or I'm just kind of mellow. Anyway, yeah, I think I'm glad to hear the rest of you sound as excited as I am about some of the changes. I really appreciate the team's effort to preserve the integrity of the building and the vision of that, and still make it a I don't know. I really liked what Mark had to say. Actually, honestly, I think keeping in mind that this is it's a community center. You know, it functions. It's got gymnasium functions, recreation functions. It's got library functions. The whole community center is behind all of that. And I think that was well put by Mark to point out that's what this whole project is, if you really bring it all together. And so that again is what makes it exciting to be looking at all those different pieces and seeing how they're going to hopefully be appreciated, valued by the entire spectrum of our community. So that's really exciting to see that coming together. Shonda, I feel bad that you couldn't see it, so I'm hoping you get to look at those pictures and see and kind of be able to tie in what we all were seeing, because it's pretty cool.
Hey, Shonda, if you need, if you don't have access to a computer, I'm happy to do a one-off run of those for you.
Oh, well, thank you. I do have a computer. It's just ancient and not all that great, but.
So Shonda, and if you have issues, I'm sure that Catherine would send you a copy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me know.
Well, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, everybody. I guess with that said, we'll be seeing you all on May 20th. Hopefully all of you, again, stay well, stay healthy, take care of yourselves. And we'll see you.
Okay, great
Thank
meeting.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, good meeting. Thank you, everybody.
You too, Doug. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Yep. Thank you all.